Despite a declared climate emergency and growing alarm at climate change, a new international jet airport is being proposed for Central Otago, New Zealand. Christchurch Airport says that despite the climate challenge, a new jet airport at Taurus does make sense. The new airport website talks of climate opportunities, promises a low-carbon future, and the company says that it is already climate positive. Critics claim that Christchurch Airport is engaging in greenwashing, deflecting attention away from the real impact of their airport operations and plans. Let's take a closer look. Christchurch Airport makes a very big claim that they are climate positive. In their words, that's even better than carbon neutral. They claim to be removing 25% more carbon emissions than they create. But look closely and you'll see that in calculating their carbon emissions, they exclude all flight emissions, which account for more than 91% of total emissions their airport enables. They say this is not their responsibility, but someone else's, and is out of their direct control. In fact, they categorize over 99% of emissions as not theirs. In doing so, they can claim to be climate positive, but they are only focusing on less than 1% of all the emissions they actually enable. In November 2020, Christchurch Airport celebrated being the first to receive carbon certification at, in their words, the highest possible level. But it turns out that the certification framework comes from within the airport industry itself, governed by the Airports Council. It is this very certification framework that allows them to ignore the vast majority of enabled emissions. In all of their communication about the new airport and its low-carbon future, there is no acknowledgement of construction emissions. Building a new airport causes a huge amount of carbon emissions from materials such as concrete, glass and steel. The control tower, terminal buildings, ancillary buildings, runway, taxiways and other airport infrastructure will come at a huge carbon cost. But it doesn't stop there. There is no mention of the construction of all of the ancillary buildings and infrastructure, which will be built by the broader airport business community over time, as the airport grows, or the ongoing operational emissions created by this community. Without the airport, this wouldn't happen. But build this airport and these additional emissions will be inevitable. To date, none of this is factored in, and none of it is mentioned in Christchurch Airport communications about Taurus. Nor is there any mention of the vast numbers of people a new airport will stimulate to fly. The airport company does not acknowledge, let alone account for, the significant increase in carbon emissions produced by all the additional people they plan to welcome to Central Otago via Taurus. Yet the airport will need more passengers to fly, to make this airport project profitable and viable. Christchurch Airport executives have stated in a community meeting that as an airport, they do not create demand, and that this is the responsibility of the airlines. Yet on social media they actively promote people to do more flying, posting both general encouragement to fly and specific promotions. They also ignore the carbon impacts of very significant flow-on infrastructure, which will be required locally and regionally because of the airport. The most obvious being significant roading upgrades on key routes. But there are numerous others. At a recent meeting in Central Otago, Christchurch Airport executives made it clear that they see this as having nothing to do with the airport, stating that it is actually up to the community and the central government to fully fund such additional infrastructure, even if it is required because of pressures created by a new airport. On their new airport website, updated in August 2022, they state that aviation emissions account for 2% of emissions in New Zealand. This is incorrect. Between 2014 and 2019, New Zealand's aviation emissions rose 43%, making us the sixth highest carbon polluter in the world per capita. This means that even before this newly proposed airport, 12% of New Zealand's carbon emissions already come from aviation. This has been widely reported and acknowledged. In arguing for the new airport, Christchurch Airport executives rely extensively on the concept of a low-carbon future for aviation. By this they mean technologies such as electric planes, hydrogen fuel, biofuels and such like. They say that in the future, aviation will be decarbonized. They talk of this happening at the fastest possible rate. They argue that their new airport will be built to accommodate these technologies. It all sounds like it will be here very soon, and will change everything. However, these technologies in any scalable form are a long way off, if they even become viable at all. They are mere concepts and ideas which the industry is trying to develop. Some of them are distant hopes with significant scientific challenges to overcome. Others, like biofuels, have significant underlying and complex issues which the industry does not generally discuss. So far there are promises, but no answers. Commentators, governments, academics and experts agree that much work has to be done, and that even if these technologies become viable, they will not account for the large increase in emissions caused by the expected increase in flying. Concerns about greenwashing extend into the recent announcement of a big solar farm for Christchurch Airport, with suggestions from Christchurch Airport executives that a similar project might be appropriate for Taurus. While solar generation is undoubtedly great news and should be encouraged, the reality is that even a huge solar farm at Taurus would come nowhere near to account for all the carbon impacts a new airport will create. So whilst a solar farm might be green and good, the much bigger airport picture is not. Solar does not make it all right. Many people don't have the time or energy to carefully fact-check claims made by Christchurch Airport. Claiming to be climate positive and promising a low-carbon future makes a new jet airport appear not only acceptable, but somehow good for the environment. We leave it to you to judge if a new Taurus airport does make sense, or whether Christchurch Airport is greenwashing its messages. And we ask whether Christchurch City Council and the New Zealand government should put an immediate stop to this project.
For more information, including detailed references and footnotes, follow the links shared with this video. All claims, facts and stats in this video are referenced for transparency. Carbon impacts are only one part of the story. Watch this space. In future episodes we plan to look closely at such issues as the business case, social license, political aspects, wider environmental impacts, impact on communities, demand issues, wide-body jets and much more. Stay tuned, and please share.